is going to go from LSU to the New Orleans Saints. We're going to start with LSU because we want to bring our friend on at 6:45 to talk Saints because he's a New Orleans guy and he's right in the middle of it, and he's very. You don't have to press him for a lot of conversation. He's a great talker, and I love that about him. We're great talkers, and I'm looking forward to his take on this because before the year, he didn't think that the Saints are going to be. He didn't know what to think of them.
Yeah.
Seems like a lot of people were in that boat. They've obviously proven that they are way better.
At least on the radar.
Right? Offensively, the schemes that they're doing, what they're now. It's NFL. It's a hard league, week to week. It's a week-to-week league, and but the first two games of this season have been really good. But LSU goes this past weekend to South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. Game day's there. It's 11 o'clock game. Kirk and Reese on the
and Ben.
Kirk and Chris.
And Ben
on the call. We talked a lot leading into the game about game day there. It's going to be super hyped. It's going to be really good for LSU. They're going to go in there. We think they're going to do what they need to do, and they're going to come up with a victory. Didn't really work out that way. LSU deferred. They don't normally do that. I was not expecting that. So they defer. South Carolina proceeds to take the ball all the way down the field and score a touchdown. Great first drive, and runs it right down their throat.
7 plays, 75 yards, touchdown.
Yep. Not ideal. Okay, fine. Script the first drive. Let's get the ball. LSU gets the ball back. Let's figure this thing out. Doesn't work out. And they get the ball back, and then we're down. Is it 10-0?
It was straight up 10-0, then 17-0.
It was 10-0. Then the blocked punt, which led to another touchdown to make it 17-0.
First play, touchdown.
So they are beating us offensively, defensively, and on special teams. All three phases of the game. Beamer ball strikes again. 11th blocked punt of Shane Beamer's coaching tenure since 2011. That's 11. That's most in college.
What do you think they talk about at Thanksgiving? Special teams.
Punts.
Special teams.
Yep, how to do that. So LSU is in a position where it doesn't look good. They have after the first quarter they have 7 yards of offense. Right, South Carolina took it to LSU. They executed their game plan to perfection. LSU felt like they came out, and I don't want to say flat, they didn't come out sharp. They're a little discombobulated. South Carolina's defensive front is real. Their defensive ends are real. And I think it took a little bit for our offensive line to kind of understand that. You can see it on film, but once you're there in person, it's a little bit different. And we had some haymakers thrown at them, and you know what? We got them off the mat. We said, all right, here we go. Second quarter hits. LSU
here we go.
Down there, 17-7, 17-10. You feel like you're about to make this big move, and you kind of weather the storm, and you get back. You close the gap. I think it was, 24-16? 24-16 and a half? Is that what we got to?
Somewhere around there.
No, that's exactly right.
24-16.
They had the big 66-yard touchdown right before that.
Right. And you give it 20, then it's 24-16. And then you get to 24-22, and you make your comeback, you do your things. There's a lot of positives. One, I said I wasn't going to do this, and I'm not. We're going to be real today, okay? It's not going to be – I'm not going to be all sunshine and rainbows because it's not. I'm going to give you a few positive points, and then we're going to get to it. Somebody stepped up in the running game. Feels like the way he runs the football and Caden Durham is the way this offense is built. He feels like he's kind of a really good fit on how this offense is supposed to be executed. His style of running fits the style of offense that we have. Zone reads, triple option. Basically, it's the modern day triple option. The RPOs. He's that type of running back to fit that. He came out of nowhere, broke tackles, executed, held up in pass protection. Was a huge spark that we needed. Right? LSU was down 17-0 on the road in a hostile environment, came back and won the football game, figured out a way to win. I think Nussmeier, outside of that one throw in the goal line, which I know everybody's saying can't happen, see what happens, all this stuff. Nussmeier has making some NFL-style throws, and he's playing lights out. One bad throw does not define how he's been playing so far this season. He has been lights out. Aaron Anderson's playing really well. Kyron Lacey playing really well. Now, all of that being said, boy, it was pretty sloppy. They had 10-plus penalties again. They had bad turnovers when we didn't need it. Bad penalties when we didn't need it. You had blown assignments on defense. And it wasn't confusion. It felt like it was over, hey, I'm going to try to make this play instead of I'm going to try to play my role on this play. And a lot of that led to big runs that turned into touchdowns and could have been backbreakers in games. Got some beneficial, the correct calls, not bullshit, cheating referee calls, the correct calls that helped mitigate some of these big turnovers, but all in all, it was too sloppy. You can't continue to play that way. Too hard to sustain that. You're playing too good of teams in the SEC to be able to go out and get down 17-0 and win the game. Got down 7-0 against USC. Got down 14-0 against Wisconsin going back to the bowl game. Cannot happen. Jared, what is your assessment on the game, and what do you want to highlight as the part of, hey, these things have got to clean up and get better before we start thinking about, okay, we're a good football team?
Well, first and foremost, you win the ball game. Yep. I think that that needs to be said straight up as anything goes. As I tried to tell Lloyd and pretty much everybody else that listened, that this place was going to be a tough place to go in and play. And once again, you're going on the road in the SEC period. That's tough enough in itself. But I already knew about this place and how tough it is to play there and what kind of team they had and what they were going to be able to do. And I think I projected the score being like 34-31 or something like that. It's pretty damn close. 3-point game still.
Was that what it was?
I know it was both in the 30s.
36-33.
Is that what he bet? No,
I said 33-30. Yeah, he was close.
Yeah, that was pretty
34-31, and it'd have been 36-33.
Yeah,
It's pretty close. So my point to it is look, you go into a place like that, it's going to be tough to play. You weathered a storm that, honestly, obviously by the history of everything, coming back 17 down, hasn't been done much in LSU's history. They were able to do that. When I see them go to places like this and you watch how they're playing, being able to play alignment and assignment football, it is so key to what you're doing. I thought they didn't do a very good job of that early on in the game. I thought some players were trying to play a little bit over their skis, trying to do a little bit too much, trying to make plays that they didn't necessarily need to be making, and it left a wide open ass holes. And they were able to take advantage of that early on and kind of bust us right in the mouth a little bit. Now, offensively, I thought the game plan and how they came out and how they started this thing is they did a whole lot of – they didn't really utilize the motions. They tried to kind of spread the defense out and use the corners and use that is like the extension of the run game. And it really didn't push the ball down the field, and it got our offense off the field and our defense back on the field a lot too early, in my opinion. Sooner or later, we started figuring this thing out and being able to move it forward and then obviously utilize the motions and start being able to use it that way. I would like to see us do more of that as we move forward and being able to implement, being able to push it out to the edges a little bit as you get into the game, as you establish the ability to be able to kind of move the ball forward. Like I said, the biggest thing you can take away is coming out with a win, because here's the thing: when you go into situations like this and you lose and you don't, it looks ugly. Like, it really, really, really looks ugly. But it also tells me a lot about this squad when you can go down 17 and find a way to come back and win. Now we have something that we can work on, because I know for a fact you didn't quit on yourself. Now you're starting to understand that these things, when we tell you keep your head in this gap, it's supposed to be in this gap. Don't get sucked inside, and that means something. We can actually go to these points and show them and show you this is the little bit that mattered, that busted a run, that busted maybe a game, right? So now these teaching points, they really start to stick a little bit more. So I'm optimistic about what they did. I knew this was going to be a tough test. I knew that this team would be able to move and score. You got to remember, like this, Lenore Sellers, much like a lot of guys when they get their first opportunity, look back to Jalen Milroe last year. First start out the gate, not very good. Second start out the gate, not very good against Texas. They bench him, and then after that, it slowly starts to pick up, and he becomes a force. Lenore Sellers' first game of the season against Old Dominion, not very good. Second start on the road against Kentucky, better. Not great, better. If he's still in this game, I'm not sure if we come out of South Carolina, out of Columbia with a win. But he wasn't. But my point is he got better. All right? I knew there would be a better team. I knew this thing was going to go the right direction, and it did for him. We were able to weather that storm and kind of go forward. I'm looking to see how they build on this and go forward, because you got another game next week, and you bring in a quality UCLA team here this week. You're going to play them, and then is that the week before the bye? Or is that one more game before the bye?
We got South Alabama.
South Alabama before the bye. So you got 2 weeks to really start putting this thing together. But this is a huge game coming up, right? Because now you're going to get a chance to do this thing at home with another quality opponent coming in. And now this is another test for you to be able to level up your game and kind of refine some of these things and clean it up and be able to move forward.
Couldn't agree more, right? I think that there was you're going to look at the final score and you're going to look at some of the big plays, right? And you can't say, oh, we just take away the big plays and defense play fine. That's not how that works, right? But you go and you look at the film, right? They can look at it. They've already seen it. They say, hey, listen, this wasn't because we're not good. This wasn't because we're even confused. This was because, hey, we tried to get a little bit over our skis and go make a play instead of saying, hey, this is where we need to be. And staying in our lane, staying in our assignment, and making the play, right? There was a lot of plays where they did that, and it worked out. There's a few plays where they didn't, and it ended up being big plays, right? You look at the numbers, and you look at what South Carolina ran for 243 yards. You can probably attribute half that to the 3 long runs that they had, right? You had a 70-yard run, or a 75-yard run, and a 60-yard run, or
I think 70-something, 66, and 65, I think.
Yeah, something like, so 3 runs made up for almost 200 yards of rushing, right? You had Rocket Sanders had 143 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns, and Lenore's had 88 yards rushing. Majority of that came on
2 runs.
The run, right?
2, yeah.
Yeah, his long run.
Mm-hmm. So
my point in saying that is you gave those up, and that can't happen. You're going to play teams that have more talent down the road. But it wasn't like South Carolina was a Nichols. It wasn't like a South Carolina was a team that was severely inferior than LSU. They had some really good athletes on that team. And these are going to be learning moments.
Yeah.
The main thing is you got out of that game with a win. Defense made plays when they had to. Strip sack. I know it didn't turn into points because we ended up turning it over right after. But they got after the quarterback. Braden Swenson played the game of his life. I think he had 3 sacks by himself. I'm looking at the tackle totals. Whit Weeks had a couple of busts and assignments as far as where he's at, but you could tell he was trying to do like. So even with the bust, he was everywhere. He was making plays, right? Harold Perkins didn't have. No, it's not how it is.
Now it sounds way better.
Wow.
I was over here doing some doctoring.
Somebody unplugged it. Not me.
It could be me.
I hadn't touched it.
I didn't touch it.
I hadn't touched it. I just, turnkey in this room. You know what I mean?
I was like, dude, I think my headphones are broken. I had my volume turned all the way up, and then, yeah, you're good now.
There we go. We're back. But my point in saying this is there's a lot of good things to take from this. But at the end of the day, man, you cannot have, I don't know what the penalty yardage was, but I believe it was somewhere around 100 yards of penalties, maybe more. Thank God South Carolina did the exact same thing.
Yeah, and that's what. So you say like they're going to play more talented teams. I don't necessarily think that that's a false statement. What I do think is you're going to play more disciplined ball clubs, and I think you're going to play teams that are going to be able to do the little things right and stay off of the penalty markers and stay off of things like that, and that's going to be a huge difference in ball games. And that's why I said like those things have got to start being cleaned up a little bit because that's what's going to lose you games as you continue to go down the line here.
I will say this, LSU over the last 3 games, I don't really remember off the top of my head of Nichols, but I remember against USC they forced 3 or 4 fumbles. They didn't recover them, but they forced a bunch of fumbles. They did the same thing against South Carolina, forced 4 more fumbles. This time they recovered 2 of them. So the defense is a lot more opportunistic than they have been in the past. Obviously, I think one big thing that I wish they would do is be able to attack the ball defensively in the secondary, right? Because a lot of times they weren't getting beaten coverage. They had good coverage on these guys, and they weren't getting the 50-50 balls. And I think that comes with experience, that comes with confidence, and that comes with time. I think you're going to start seeing these guys start making some of these plays. Lloyd, what were your take on it? Because you've been a lot more positive positive, and I think than most people are expecting.
Well, Fonz said I fucking told you unplugged it. Good on Fonz for
Wait,
giving us a little
what
volume
did he say?
control. He goes, I thought he unplugged it. And I don't know who unplugged it. Not saying it's just you. No, you're good now.
Maybe
You're
it was
back.
accidental.
Yeah, it was accidental.
Also, like the way they've been using Aaron Anderson. We're gonna get into that.
Yeah,
In a little bit.
that's my guy. The John Emery
My guy's been six catches, 50 yards, touchdown, just working.
just
away,
set the
you know
record
what I
for most tight end catches and
Only
in the
29
career at
games.
LSU. No big deal.
mean? No big deal.
No, but I was overall positive. There's the one takeaway, if I had to have one, like that's going to be negative, would be the fact that you can keep saying, "Hey, the defense is playing great, and the turnover rate and the havoc rate, all these things."
Great. I didn't say they're playing great.
I contend that they are. If you take away some of these plays, right?
can't.
You can't, and that's part of the problem where it's easy to look at like, oh, it's one or two coverage busts, and that hasn't been the deal. That was last year where it was you got people running naked down the field, and you got to figure that kind of stuff out. I think a lot of people are going to look at that game that you saw against South Carolina and look at the bust and look at some of the things that happened, and it wasn't exactly that, right? You had probably 5 people in 5 different positions for the first time all year. You saw Whitweeks play a ton, and you saw what happened whenever he was an every down linebacker. Like, he got himself – he's used to playing out over his skis and going to make a play. You saw his eyes change a little bit. Me and Jay were talking about it before the show. We all were. Where it's not – like, he's been on the field when it's, hey, Whit, go hunt. Go make a play. And this was you have to play within the scheme a little bit, and you saw that bust LSU. My only contention would be if this happens against Nichols and it happens against South Carolina, the big plays on the run game where it's run fits and things that you should have kind of figured out, they're continually not to happen. But with that said, you have a great 2-week test to get these two things figured out, whether it's run fits or positionally. But I think that's why I was concerned about making the change to Harold Perkins at star, which moves everybody around the football, right? Now you have to put what weeks in. They ran a 4-3 for the majority of the game. I would have liked to have seen that wait and just put Perk at spy, and then we'll figure it out the next 2 weeks.
Well, I mean, like, you got to remember too. There is a piece of game plan specific stuff that you do. I would imagine the front and everything that they did had a lot to do with understanding that they were probably going to run the ball a ton. They ran it 41 times in that game, right? So I would imagine that probably had a little bit to do with that. And obviously you insert with weeks. Look, I don't think the run fits are quote unquote not figured out. You just have to get guys playing disciplined football.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I find it really hard to believe that we are fitting runs where we have trucks we can drive through these holes. It's also getting guys to understand that play your role. You're not going to have 19 tackles every game. And I think a little bit of that and understanding that, and that's honestly the growth and maturity that comes along with playing ball at this level. Because you got to remember, all of these guys, everywhere that they've ever been before they got here, you're the superstar. You're the one we're asking to go make the play. You're the one that can't be blocked. You're the one that's the problem everywhere you go. And I'm not saying that some of these guys don't have the talent to do it, but you're not asked to do that every play, every down when you get to this level of football. And I think understanding that as you grow in these roles is something that, like a Whitweek, something that sometimes kind of even Harold, these guys got to kind of understand that you have to play football within the framework of the scheme. And that's the part that you make these mistakes in the first month of the season. As the season goes, you start hoping that these guys start maturing and start coming along and start understanding and grasping those concepts and start applying them to their actual game. And not like 80% of the time, 100% of the time in the game.
Yeah. Do we by any chance have the PFF grades?
I can pull them up really quickly because I do.
The reason why I'm saying this is because you talked about having guys in different positions. True, right? You have Harold Perkins that plays star, and I like the way they're using him. I like that they're bringing him in blitz. Look, there was a play on the sack fumble, right? Now, look, Robbie Ashford's not known for being the greatest passer in the world.
He went for over 300 against LSU when he was at Auburn.
Did he throw for over 300?
No, just total.
Yeah, no, because he ran a bunch.
Not Saturday.
Huh?
Not Saturday.
Not Saturday. But on that strip sack, they showed it on the TV. They showed it on the broadcast. They highlighted
on the iPad.
On the iPad. My iPad didn't work. I hadn't turned it on since COVID. A lot of updates had to be done. Could you imagine how frustrated I was on the golf course?
I told you that was going to happen. He told me, he's like, LSU started playing bad. I might have brought some of that to the course. I may have cussed at somebody that I was playing with.
Oh, actually, I will say this. I'll give a.
Your flowers?
Listen, it was my fault. We're on a par 3. This is match play.
Which
9
hole?
holes match play. We're on 5. Okay, it's a kind of a tricky par 3, a little wind in the face.
Water.
Weird number. You got water all right. You gotta get it over there.
You go at that back bunker on the left, and you'll
You
always
gotta go
be
at the
short.
back, but if you go long on the back bunker,
rarely do.
You're slippery.
That wind is all
slippery slope.
crosswind.
So we're sitting there.
I love that.
They
hole.
had just won the hole, so they had the box. And I'm sitting in my cart, and I'm watching the game. And I forget what play it was, but it was
probably Lamar Sellers going for.
No, it was a
75.
third down. It was something that happened with us. And I wasn't paying attention, and I was sitting in the cart, and I said, "Fuck!" I screamed it loud as he is swinging.
Gassing it.
Mid backswing. That's just
I look
terrible.
Up, I look up, and the ball goes boom in the water. Now, his partner was like the higher handicap and the better golfer.
Lower
I was
handicap.
like, the lower handicap. And
I told you all was gonna happen.
I was like, oh, my bad, man, my bad. Thinking like, no big deal. Like, look, hit another one.
In a golf tournament.
Not thinking it was gonna be what happened. He hits it to 7 feet. Like, he hits it, I'm like, oh my god. And then what did I do? I hit my. Almost I have a crick in my neck, so if you see me twitching my face because my neck caught. But what I do, I hit it in the water. There may be some little chatter in the back, but didn't get an extra swing. So
Good guy, Mikey.
Whatever. Anyways, I forgot why I got to that.
I say that we got way off the rails, right?
But my iPad thing didn't work.
Yeah,
There was
iPad
too
didn't
much,
work.
Too much updating. We got there because of 5 different positions. They highlighted Harold Perkins. Harold Perkins is playing the star position. He had been coming in and getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback, not necessarily getting sacks, but disrupting a lot of the plays in the backfield, allowing other guys to get there. Happened early in the game when Sage Ryan, much maligned, Sage Ryan comes in, forces a fumble on a sack. They recover it. Big play. Well, in this
Perk almost took off on that too.
I know. On this specific
happen.
play, instead of him coming in, he trails back. Robbie Ashford thinks he's going to have the guy going right over the middle. Harold Perkins does it perfectly, gets right underneath the window. He can't go it. Now Robbie Ashford's panic. Strip sack, recover it. Now, it didn't end up turning into points, but I like the way they utilized him there. I also like the way that our freshman safeties played. I know they had some busts, but they actually played pretty well. This is a road game in the SEC. You're getting a start. Like, there's a lot of things that you have to navigate through, and I think that this is an experience that they're going to be able to get better from, and I think that they got better as the game went on. So, to your point, 5 different players in different positions, I think that's a big thing.
And you had the Harold Perkins pressure numbers. If you're going to pull those back up, I have the PFF. Take it for what it is. It's a metric that you can look into.
It's a metric.
It's a metric.
It's a metric.
Jordan Gilbert, highest rated safety at 82.9. Caden Durham, highest rated running back at 82.5.
Nothing
Aaron
else.
Anderson at 78.3. Greg Penn, 74.7. This is all out of 100. Sage Ryan, much maligned, 72.8. So, for what you're saying, I do agree that you want to see the young guys play, but this is what you get when young guys play.
Where was Harold rated on that?
He's not. He wasn't in the top 5 or bottom 5. He's right in the middle.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Why? The reason why? Because
I think he calls other people to play well.
So for me, yeah, that's fine. For me, when I watch him play, though, I feel like I've seen him a lot around the ball, disrupting this year. Not just yesterday, not just Saturday.
Right,
This
but not
year,
making the play.
I saw him miss a good 3 to 4 to 5 tackles.
First play of the game, he missed a tackle.
Himself. And for him to take that step to be where everyone has him regarded and where we think he is, those plays have got to be made. And I know for a fact he would sit there and tell you that himself right now.
Yep.
And so, like, that's the step me personally, I want to see him take is everything we used to see him doing his freshman year in the backfield on quarterbacks is I need to see him start making those plays when it's one-on-one and me and you in the phone booth.
Yeah.
I need to see him start making those plays on backs, on receivers all the time because that's the kind of player that I believe he is, and I'm sure that's the kind of player that he believes he is as well. And once he starts doing that, I believe that's when he takes the next step to where it's like, oh, wow,
Right.
this is stardom type
Right.
thing.
No,
That's where I think he should be.
100% agree. Another thing to point out, there was on South Carolina side there was 20 pass attempts, right? Actual pass attempts, whether they scramble, but 20 times they actually threw the football. LSU had
40.
5 sacks, 9 tackles for loss, right? So 5 sacks on only 20 passing attempts. Obviously, those sacks don't count as passing attempts, but the defensive line was getting after the quarterbacks at a high rate, like a percentage rate, of not having a ton of dropbacks.
Havoc rate. Baby.
Right? Like they were getting back there on a team that didn't throw the football a lot. They're running the football. Now the running fits have to get better. But the fact the way that we're getting after quarterbacks right now, I think, is a huge, because last year was not that way. They're getting after the quarterback, and to me, those are game changers. You can strip sacks and fumbles. That's how you end games, and that's how you can turn games around. And that is a huge positive for me, right? These guys are getting after it. I think it's pretty impressive. Impressive what defensive line coaches can do.
They look good up front, man. But for me, and look, you bring the highest paid defensive coordinator in town. He is a linebacker specialist. At this point, too, if the defensive line is playing better and they're holding points pretty well, and now we need these second-level guys to kind of start filling these gaps and start playing better there. To me, one of the biggest signs of a bad defense is when you can't stop the run.
Yeah.
Right? And to me, because we're not making tackles and we're kind of playing out of character and out of our position sometimes, that's making us a bad defense. You get what I'm saying? Like when somebody runs for, I think, 243 on you, I don't care if it's 3 runs or not at all. That's all it takes, right? You take those 3 runs away, that's 21 points off the board. Like, that's all it takes sometimes. And they don't need to put the ball in the air more than 20 times, or they can't put the ball in the air more than 20 times because they said, you know what, we'll run it down their throat for 41 times. Right. And that's kind of what they did. So those plays have to start being made, and what you saw from the passing game and what you saw from the passing rush becomes that much more, in my opinion, that much more effective, because the run game has to be shored up. And I think that's the next progression of where this defense needs to go, is we have to start fitting better. We have to start playing the run a little bit better, or it's going to be bad news as we continue to go in this league. Just will be.
A couple things here.
Fletch can get here soon. We're going to get back to this after.
I have the Zoom link sent to him. Now I have questions about the sound. A little concerned. But I don't know what's going on. You weren't plugged in. I think you're definitely plugged in. I'm plugged in. So people show up to work sometimes. That said, I did get the question earlier today. If Lenore Sellers doesn't get hurt, do you think that changes the way that LSU that changes the game?
Yes.
If Lenore Sellers doesn't get hurt, LSU might lose by 14.
I don't think it
Just being honest.
But
beauty is we'll never know.
But what can Robbie Ashford do that Lenore Sellers can't?
I think Lenore Sellers
he knows the offense. I think he knows the offense. I think he has the reps and everything.
Yeah.
The numbers when positive me over here in this corner. Once they settled in, they settled in. That defense, when you go through the drive chart, and
when did they settle in?
I'm looking
after the second quarter.
So, South Carolina had 24 points at halftime. They scored 9 points,
and I think they had 9 yards in the third quarter.
So, they did settle in. I will give you that. They had 9 points, and they had 9 points in the fourth. A lot of that was. They weren't all field goals, right? One was it was a 2-point conversion. They tried to go for 2. They scored 1 touchdown in the fourth. Tried to go for 2.
What do you think about that? What do you think about going for it now?
What do you mean?
LSU. I'm talking about when they get down to the first and goal from the 2.
They tried to change it up. They tried to get under center.
There's a lot of things to talk about.
I know. And we're not going to be able to get to all of it right now. We're going to get to it after the conversation. He's not in there yet, right?
No.
Okay. I like their idea of, it hasn't worked the way we've been trying to do it, short yardage. Let's
put a defense.
Let's try to get under center, and let's put a guy who's athletic. And I understand the concept. I would like to see maybe some options, like some different. Don't run the same play 3 times.
There you go.
Type thing.
That's all. I loved what they did. I just didn't like you. Literally gave the same look 3 times in a row, and even though you changed the play call, if you will, on the 3rd time, you actually gave the same action and the same look to start it. So that kind of stuff, I think that we could have been a little more creative in that spot, but that's what I got on that. But I love them actually getting under center and doing something a little different.
Yeah, me too.